All right, I think today I'm going to choose a deliberately provocative title. Something like There Is No, or will it be something like There Are No Creative Thoughts? Something like that. So, what do I mean by that statement? Because obviously, I do think there is such a thing as creativity, and I do think there is such a thing as inspiration. I do think there are ideas, and I do think that there are creative questions, like questions that sort of demand art as a response. I, I, I act as if that were the case. And I think that may be the crucial difference, because as I'm exploring the sort of big sky concepts of meditation, right? The idea that thoughts, sensations, emotions arise against a clear baseline of consciousness, as if those thoughts were weather, right? I think that's a pretty common metaphor, that consciousness, awareness is like the sky, always there, always clear, and weather, whether it's clouds, sunshine, rain, hailstorms, frogs, those are self-arising phenomena that will pass. And part of the process of meditation is to, sorry, itchy nose, which would have passed if I had not scratched my nose, right? The experience of meditation is to become familiar with that state, with that condition, with that behavior of a thought, that a thought arises in the same way that a sound occurs, or some other physiological sensation, like an itch or a pain in the knee. These are things that have a cause and effect, but those cause and effects are not called forth by my intention. The thoughts that arise in meditation, and by extension, the thoughts and experiences that arise now as I'm recording this video, or tomorrow when I go back to work after the long weekend, I have no more control over the initiation of those thoughts than I do any other sense that impinges upon my consciousness. So why do I at the same time feel an urge or a need or an interest or a desire to write an opera? Why? Where does that come from? Sorry, speaking of noises that I have no control over, again, my dog's running around. Someday, those of you who watch a lot of these, I will have an episode where I do nothing but show my dogs. They're delightful little creatures, but they're a bit noisy. And I have no control over their noise. I could suppress them, I could lock them up, I suppose, but that is not the objective of dog racing, just as it is not the objective of meditation. Instead, it is to observe and to recognize the true state, the underlying condition of those thoughts, of these dogs' behavior. Why is it then that my action, the ideas that are worked out in a piece of art, whether it's music or poem painting, sculpture. There's nothing inherently different about those ideas and thoughts than there is about any other. And in fact, when I'm meditating and observing the thoughts, it's not as if thoughts that arise uh, call out to even be considered as a creative thought. There's nothing that they don't have a different color, they don't have a different sound, they don't have a different feel to them. If I try to remember now in a sitting session, when I sit and I um, focus on my breath, or I observe the thoughts, or whatever the practice is, uh, there aren't bells that ring and say, look, here's a creative idea, go and write this. Here's a musical idea, go and write this. They're just ideas, they're thoughts that come. So what is the connection? Like having decided then that within the thought itself, there's nothing within the nature of the thought that demands that I go and write an opera. That is an action. And we all take actions, and the enlightened Buddha takes authentic actions that spontaneously manifest compassion and wisdom. And those of us who are not enlightened Buddhas take action that is derived from karma and the forces of cause and effect that summarizes. And so I act based on that sort of set of universal rules, and they are actions taken by a particular self that is in a particular scenario, a particular instance, right? That self that decides to sit down and put pencil on manuscript paper is a momentary slice of the manifestation of this life. It's just sounding pretty tortured, isn't it? I'm not really struggling with this. I don't think this is as difficult as I'm making it sound. I think that the creative act is perhaps one of the options that we have in response to kind of the recognition of the interactions between humans. And to the degree that, or to the extent that the art, the aesthetic function aligns with Dharma, it makes sense to me. And the degrees to which they diverge are making less and less sense to me as I practice more with meditation, and as I honestly spend a bit more time writing, and trying to finish this opera. And I ask myself, why am I doing this? And I'm not driven to do it by the nature of the thought itself. It's an action that is unfolding within the continuum of myself, driven by the laws of karma, and hopefully, I trust, in alignment with Dharma. Not all art is like that, and certainly none of the art that I've written, none of the music I've written really does it. That's not quite true. The electronic music that is on my Bandcamp site has always felt more directly aligned to the raw experience of mind. But my sort of classical compositions, the stuff I've written for piano, stuff I wrote decades ago as a graduate student, the motivation for that was very immediate. Do you know what I mean? It was very much a part of um, the the um, fragile, brittle was the word I was looking for. The brittle definition of self that that I had and that I have. So maybe that's the question: is inspiration doesn't reside within the. It's not an attribute of the thought. It's also, I think, we all agree that inspiration is not how you get anything substantial written. You get something substantial written by writing it, and by scheduling the time to write it. Why don't I leave it here? A little bit shorter than normal, but I'll leave it as an open-ended question. I know a lot of you are composers and creative individuals, and I'm assuming there's a fair overlap between practitioners and composers. I'd be really interested in hearing what your dynamic is between the observation of the thought as part of meditation, the nature of thought, through then the sort of the action, the discipline, the ethics of action, right thought, right view, the Eightfold Path. Where does creativity fit in there? Does it fit in there? Is it an entirely supercilious function, or is it really something that can overlap with Dharma? And if so, how? There's a lot of work in writing an opera. I'm really just trying to decide. Maybe I'm trying to decide if it's worth it, or if my musical compositions are slighter in ambition. Anyway, keep your wits about you. Please drop a comment if you have any thoughts on this, or any way for me to get out of my own head on it all. I think I'll come back to this topic periodically, assuming that I continue to put the effort in to write this larger piece of music, and continue with the practice. So keep your wits about you.